8:05 a.m. and I wanted to discuss something that has been at the forefront of my mind for maybe the last, I guess, 3 to 4 years, and that is the subject of death and demise and how we'll all inevitably, breathe our last breath. And I wanted to go into when it first became a central thing with which I thought about, and also its everlasting impact on my manner of life or living. Say hello to VVS. So it was, I think, late mid 2015 um, when I assigned myself several of my continuous roles and various things I've done. It was during that period where I started recording much more regularly on YouTube. And part of the intent behind that was in knowing that you at some point will not be able to do this anymore. And before I mention just the continuous part of that, I wanted to also go into there are several theories about what occurs after one dies. There's the thought that there's cessation of any feeling and you just don't feel anything at all after that. My preferred belief system would be that you go to, what is considered heaven, and then meet people that you knew before that died, or just get some actual eternity of satisfaction, as one would claim for that to be. Again, that's just what I would hope is after, but um, I'm giving you all the different theories here of what it could be. Um, I think most people would like mine over the other options or over the other theories that have circulated. Because again, who wants to just not know what happens afterward and be completely unaware of anything? So, um, but to really go into how it impacts me day to day, I would say that it's reminiscent of having one of those what are those jars called where it's sand at the top and then it gets all the way to the bottom, the hourglass. Um, and it really, it dictates part of how I handle many of the things you see on this channel. So, for example, if many of you were paying attention to that book I was doing, um, that came out very quickly because I had the belief system that might not be able to do this for whatever reason later on, and it's really part of what continuously drives me to just not put things off. Um, because I noticed that after I started taking it into consideration, just this whole idea that you can be here 1 minute and gone the next. Um, I more often than not tried to contact people I had close relationships with, male and female, more often. Even if it was just a small thing, just say hello or send them a message every day or every other day. Obviously, that's annoying to some people, but most didn't have any issue with it. And I guess I just as it when it comes to the relationship aspect of this channel, it really reinforces why I have such low tolerance for the stalling tactics that you see used by many of the women I've described on here. I had one who told me that we could talk for 2 years and nothing would be any different. Another talking about don't come to see me after 3 or 4 months because we still don't know each other. It's aggravating because they're allowed to play this game of putting things off and pretending as if nothing is moving. And you're sitting here with this constant wondering of is this my last year? Is this my only instance of happiness? Yada yada yada. Um, and no, a lot of people just don't seem to have that same feeling, even though we've had all of these mass shootings where I'm sure the people who were became casualties didn't know they weren't going to be alive the following day. VVS is saying SMH. Yeah, I feel exactly the same way when it comes to just having this belief system that you can't control time. I can't make an hour slow down because I wanted to. Um, but for whatever reason, people have this thing about, oh, I'll get married, when I'm this age. I'll go and date this person at this time. Wait 2 days to say this. Wait 3 days to do that. Wait a year to start. All of it is conducive to being just aggravating. Um, because we live in a world where, with the advancements in ways in which we can be harmed in technology, uh, you know, you're not able to still speculate and assume, hey, I won't run into this. VS says I waste a lot of my life on women. I've put my energy toward my goals for now. Yeah, but it's not even just that. If someone, and this is what I've tried to make clear, relationships were not intended to become something we had to, uh, you know, go online and look up a guru to figure out how to suffice with. You go back to your relationships with, let's say, family members. I can wager a good chunk of those you just felt naturally comfortable with. And there's some people you just feel naturally comfortable with, that you're not related to. You meet later on in life. And it's those relationships, be they with other males, if you're male, or with other women, if you're female, that people need to really put emphasis on, because I'm telling you, it can get to be a headache, trying to allow all of your time and energy to be invested into trying to craft something with a person that might go one way or the other. I wish people would realize that. No, VVS, I can guarantee that you have several people with whom you don't feel the need to go read up an article on, how do I talk to this person, how do I make them like me, how do I do this, and you're shamed for not engaging with random commoners, um, who you know would frustrate you or irritate you or make you just not want to talk to them any other time, but because they're around, you're supposed to engage them or something. I've had people actually criticize me for kind of being open and saying, I don't want to speak with you, I'm not interested, just yada, yada, yada. But they have this thing where they can't seem to reconcile with themselves. If a man is on a fixed schedule, we all have, the same days and minutes in the month, he's not going to invest energy into someone or a group of people that has proven more often than not to give him aggravation. I've had many people in the current era who've talked about, I want to do this when I'm this age, I want to do this when I'm that age, and they have this thing where they can't see how you wouldn't want to put something off. I was talking to some woman that was telling me about how she didn't want to have children until she was whatever age or something. And I said to her, how do you even know you're going to live to that age? The smart person will say, you know what, I'm going to prepare myself for this right now. I'm going to, I won't necessarily maybe do it right now, but I'll definitely um, take precautions. Someone, for example, who wants to start saving for retirement, they're not going to wait until they're 40 if they're, planning this out sufficiently. They won't retire early, earlier maybe, but they'll still have a higher chance of being able to pull it off more successful because they attempted it um, earlier. Okay, so VVS, these stubborn people, I feel, are not. They're not stubborn for the fact that they won't try something different. They're stubborn for the fact that they won't recognize that we do not have a guaranteed next year or next decade. And so when I see them constantly putting things off, I don't understand. Maybe you can make some sense of that to me, because I don't get it. And they have this thing where they, it goes back to really all parts of life, where, I talk about wanting to be in relationships, wanting to work on some project, and many of those projects, I just pick something up and start doing them because of the constant thought of meeting an early demise or meeting it at some point I didn't intend for it to happen. It's all with that same mindset where I just keep picturing this will happen because of whatever reason. And it's not to say that we're all going to meet something we don't want to happen, but we should know by now, anyone who's been turned down over and over, no matter what strategy they employed for dating, that you don't play the role in determining how people perceive you. VVS is the reason they think that way is because they always have options, so they can sell whenever they feel like it. They hit 30 and flips upside down off them. Yeah, well, that's kind of my thing. They don't. It goes back to this fact of living in the moment. Um, I start projects and various things that might not be done for months or years, but I do it because I want to at least feel satisfied by the fact that I tried and attempted and aimed to make something that could pay off later on. So it's really despicable, but I think we're beating a dead horse. I'm kind of surprised nobody else is in here right now, but I guess they're all sleeping. Uh, I forget people always like to stay in bed for until the afternoon on weekends more often than not. Yeah, Brian, it's coming, and I just wish people would. If I think if people recognized it and paid more attention to it, you wouldn't have so much time wasteful type activities. I'm the kind of person who would rather have a phone call or a one-on-one meeting with someone I've known, with regularity and with trust, than with loads and loads of people. Um, for the reason that I'd like to pour attention into those that I feel have, been decent toward me. When you died, you just rot in the ground. You go into the afterlife. We have no way of knowing. Uh, VVS says, think about it. When people have a teacher says turn an assignment any time before this set date, the majority won't start instantly until this date is almost close. That actually reminds me of what this one instructor I had said, which was that uh, it was something along the lines of, "Oh, my teacher said I have to do this work and it's due in 8 days." Well, I have 8 days to do that. And the next day I have 7 days to do that. And then a couple days later I have 4 days to do that. Then a few days later I have one day to do that. And then he goes to sleep. Oh, I have a couple of hours to where I can do my paper or my work. And then he goes to sleep again. Oh, I didn't get to do my work, but you know what? It's okay because my teacher didn't give me enough time. Or he just was pretending to be in the different stages of waiting for something to happen. Uh, I wish there was a way to, and then bring them back to tell us their observations. Well, there isn't. And the only thing I really like about the atheist model is that because they don't believe there's anything afterward, they have this thing of trying to make the most impact of the time that they're around. But it just feels like with most people, they don't actively think about, you're not going to experience this day again. That's why you have all of these people giving this dating advice, talking about, just wait until this happens, just hold on to this, hold on to that, and you get sick of it. I mean, one day I really just sat here and said, I want to do these various projects, and yes, it would be nice to go out and talk to individuals, but if they're not going to pay me any attention or actually try to create something with me, why would I give them the time of day? There's always cremation, Brian. Us after we're dead. Uh, in my opinion, the worst thing of death in terms of perception afterward is that people have this thing where they try to insult you by that if someone is 90, they go, "Oh, I can't wait until that person goes to hell or whatever," and it's just, I don't get it. We're all going to die. Well, you watch life pass you by, everything else seems to look up for you except this one area that's not 100% up to you. Yeah, no, really, VVS, the scariest thing in the world that a lot of males are going through in the current era is that they're having people tell them, work on yourself, focus on yourself, and they go out and they do these various career advancing things, and they're met with the expectation that that's going to guarantee them a woman, in particular one that they'll actually find both physically and personality wise attractive, and they're told over and over again not to talk about, to just suppress this feeling, to not actively speak on something that bothers them, that they're, whatever term you want to throw out there, if they, some derogatory term, if they have a problem with this. Brian says we can haunt them so we know what people think. Manny says you're Christian, right? I'm Catholic. O'Donohue says I don't really believe in religion. I don't blame you. Uh, we've already been over my religious beliefs and how, I've told people before I don't mind you not subscribing to this stuff because you just have to have faith if you want to go into it. I mean, every time they use the scientific argument, I told them I can't refute it. So I try to give it, these religions a fair, or at least people who deny them a fair shake, because there's room for the deniability to actually make sense in this circumstance. So if anyone has anything else left to say, they can say it. If not, I will close the stream out and maybe do something on later on. If anyone's any other comments to make, I was planning on doing the We Are in Dark Times 3 uh, stream, which would just be an outlier of all the issues I can mention or reference. It's just really sad that uh, there's okay. So the level of seriousness has gone from a 9 to a 2 in a matter of moments. Um, what do you consider the purpose of your existence to be? The fulfillment of every single goal for which I have outlined that is within my realm of control. So, for example, if I say, you know what, I want to make a documentary series on, whatever subject, and I get that done, and then I just have a list of all the ones I want finished, and they're done, I will feel satisfied. Um, and I think my involvement has benefited those who I have continuous interactions with, or just am continuously involved in the lives of. I don't bring drama. I don't um, start any types of conflict that was not already there to begin with. I feel I am very content with the people that I am associated with the most. So maybe that's answered the question. Don't you think there is more to life? That still lies with whoever the person is you're talking with. So, for example, if I tell you that, my main fight is addressing things that are political, and then, writing or speaking about it, and then that's what I do for the remainder of my days, that was about as much as there was to it. I can easily go and say, oh, I'd like to get married and all of these other things, but those are all issues that another person will have to co-sign with. If I make the decision to turn this camera on and speak about, whatever the given topic is, no one had to be the co-signer to have that enacted or start that process. So really, I would answer that while I can see there being other things in life to do, other than what I do, I still feel most content with doing this out of the things which I can just do on my own without the involvement of someone else. I could readily admit that I would be more satisfied with, I don't know, being married and having a family than with just, sitting at home and speaking about, news stories. But if there isn't a woman to do that with, I can't, sit there and dwell on it. It is what it is. I've accepted the things I cannot change. And that's designed with the intent of ensuring my own satisfaction with the current dichotomy of how things are. There exists some societies where people can, buy partners and do all kind of other inhumane things that I probably would have a much easier time, getting through or coalescing with than the matter of how things are now. But freedom of choice has meant that some of us will not be chosen, and that's just how it is. I think VVS went to sleep. He said, "I'm gonna be the first one to stream, and I'm just gonna go back and." He said, "You know what? Deaths are coming. I better make sure I get my last nap, possibly my last nap, depending on when I get picked." The model for today is a very difficult. Uh, the model for today is very difficult to get around. I agree. Manny says you desire marriage a lot. Have you even ever taken care of children before? Yes. So again, this goes back to people not just assuming things. I mean, it's like if you were to tell me, why would, and also there are people who are married that don't have children, so I don't know where that would just entail. You must automatically jump to that right after. Oh man, O'Donohue, I think what we're seeing here is that thing where someone shows up, they say something that is, tries to throw me off and then runs out. I really hope this is that Manny is not a repeat of that. We've had enough examples of that in the last year. I did not say I didn't. I was saying that it is something that would have to come after the fact. And I've stated before that's one of the things that like when you have these different movements talking about male separation and yada yada yada, divest from women. It that was one of the things you couldn't do on your own. So it was recognition on my part of the benefits of still trying to interact and negotiate with the current era, you know, females. That answers that question. Yeah. What's the old saying? Curiosity killed the cat. People just sit there. It's like an interview. Which, by the way, if O'Donohue or VVS remembers, there was that guy that came in there that was, I guess, asking if he could interview me during the stream about gun control yesterday, where he was sitting there and asking all those questions. Like I kind of turned off by it because I have this thing called a private message system, and no one ever wants to use it. That's why I always can't take it seriously because it's literally on my page. It's been used by multiple people in the past, and for whatever reason, whenever someone has what they call a serious question or something they want to ask me, it doesn't have to do with the topic of the stream. They just won't go in there. They'll go in the whatever live chat or comment section and post it there. Uh, which always makes me think they're trying to, if it's something that is derogatory, they're trying to grandstand because, why would you go out of your way to make sure that this supposed comment that's meant for the person is seen by, everyone online? So it's all a pattern of behavior. But yeah, to give a final word on that subject, the marriage thing and childbirth, all that has to do with, or just the wanting to try that has to do with the idea that you might not be able to in 10 to 20 years. Um, and if people can't understand that, I can't explain any further. So we just have to sit there, agree to disagree, and move on. Because there are a pattern of behaviors I've noticed about people currently, and it's part of the reason why we've seen such a downward spiral in parenting and just progress and how things are done. Someone will jump in bed with an individual. And I guess what I hate about speaking on these topics is that a lot of times they tend to overlap with each other. So you'll go into a stream about, me talking about death, and you'll say, what does the relationship stuff have to do with that? But then I'll explain, um, we're talking about someone here who sits and actively thinks about they'll never have this month again, they'll never be able to do this again. And then these people who just seem to live off of, this idea that they're going to be around forever. That's why they get into these argumentative battles with people that, don't do anything to serve anyone's purpose other than to create drama and, I guess, entertain those that aren't taking part of it. Yeah, but BVS. What I hate about the way things are is that it's caused people to not take it seriously when someone says, "Hey, I don't want all these problems and things that have nothing to do with me, being forecast in front of me. I just want to, live some life of decency where I focus on people who have done something for me, which is what happens typically. I've noticed a running theme with a lot of conversations I hear when I walk outside or go somewhere. They'll have some two people talking about one person that they know and just over and over talking about that one person. And then a lot of times when I have my conversations, if it's not a news event, I'm only speaking on things that directly have to do with myself. That's why I can never understand for the life of me how, they make this claim that talking with all of these loads of people is so much better than, just being up front and saying I only have interest in, maybe these 8, 9, or 10 people, where, I know what I'm getting. I know I'm not going to have someone yelling at me. I know I'm not going to have someone, bringing drama to me. It's just very satisfying to not have that. And I really wish I could finally be rid of it by not continuing to engage with a majority of the women I speak with currently, which I've tended to do, just end these things altogether. But in most cases, they just bring frustration, and life is too short to sit there and talk with one of them for 3 months and have them tell you that they still don't know you and they don't still want to do this after they told you up front that it's because they didn't know you that they didn't want to do that. It's all over the place. BVS, I'm a very upfront person. I like playing games with people. They seem to be what you have to act like. Yeah, that's why you have all of these various, websites giving advice, or yeah, giving advice on how to, mingle with contemporary people. Sitting over there and trying to tell you if you just, you know, don't say anything to her for 5 weeks, and if you just slightly tilt your glasses like this, and if you just look at her like this, she'll definitely want to get with you. They do things like that. They make it seem as if you just follow this pattern of tricks, which again has never, I don't think has ever worked for anyone that wasn't actually that way. Because if you're talking about getting a long-term partner, those claims of being mysterious are going to wear off eventually. Now, VVS, what I hate is that they'll sit here and they'll tell you that you have to behave this type of way, but ask yourself this: if you're going to have a legitimate relationship with a person, aren't you going to have to admit your insecurities and or things that bother you at some point or another? Because look, going on one date and just talking about, oh, I walked 10 miles in the snow is one thing, but if you're supposedly married or, in some committed relationship with that person, I'm supposed to believe that, I'm never going to tell them how frustrated I am with, I don't know, something that happened at my job or something that, you know, bothered me about a news story, just various things that I can't believe anyone's sincerity when they say, you know, do not show any type of lack of confidence ever. Just be the robot, be the unfearing robot. And look, I'm legitimately terrified and will admit it readily, of not finishing these various things I've started, prior to not being able to do it anymore. That is something that, deeply worries me, and I've tried to resolve to get on them, or just constantly try to do those things. And it really seems if people just don't have the mentality, they just say, whatever, we'll let you sit over here and fight the stuff off on your own. So it's all an aggravating process. Oh, so does anyone else have anything else to say, or do we wrap up? Everything else gets better because it's mainly in my control. I can't control another person. That's what I've said. I had a user who ended up, this was his last comment, saying that, I was talking about self accountability and I was a hypocrite because I was blaming every other factor for not being able to get with a woman. And I explained to him that I was talking about how these people have these children out of wedlock and they'll blame, the ongoing legacy of slavery or something else. But, you know, two people control who they open their legs to. They just do. There's no Spread Your Legs Act of 1973 that caused everyone to open their legs to any guy or woman that walked, across the street that they barely knew. And in going into the difficulties with even starting a relationship in the current era, which has been evident by the positive reception or the sympathies I've received from multiple users who comment frequently on this channel. I was explaining that, I can't make another person like me. I can't make another person not leave the little troll comments. That's like someone sitting there and saying, "Oh well, I wouldn't." If you recall, during dark times too, you had the user say, "I wouldn't have gone back and forth with you for an hour if, you hadn't said you didn't want to debate." So again, he's saying that because I was the puppet master and apparently, controlled his fingers and made him type on his keyboard, it was all me who was responsible for that. Nothing on his part at all. It's that same mentality where you, by the fact that you're involved, you're just sitting there having to take the blame, the fall for choices other people made. I mean, I've had to give you an idea of how ridiculous things are on here. I've had examples of women who said, "I don't want to talk to you other than text," and I say, "Okay, screw it." And then you'll have a guy who'll come on and go, "Oh man, if you had just talked by text, you would have switched over eventually." And that's in that theory of just keep going, just keep going, just the hopeless Ferris wheel claim. And we've already proven that's a load of malarkey because I've told you about multiple women I've spoken with for months, and they didn't change their position. They stayed as steadfast in their opposition to forming anything as Netanyahu does to having a peace settlement between the Israelis and the Palestinians. They just wouldn't move. They refused to accept the fact that there was a person who wanted to have some difference or change. Okay, well, I don't know what else to do about it. If anyone wants to donate a mic, I'll be very satisfied. Okay, so here. Hey, VVS, if you look down there, you say exactly talks to them for weeks, months, and years and still won't budge. I told you, I gave up on that one who told me I could talk to her for 2 years and she wouldn't budge. Or I shouldn't expect her to budge because that was a slap in my face when she was sitting over there getting horny and wet between the legs over a guy that literally, tossed her out, pumped and dumped her effectively. And then when you offer a difference or a change, they don't want to hear that. We're not doing that. And again, you sit there and you watch that hourglass of time just slipping and slipping and slipping and slipping, and they won't budge. They will not accept the fact that there is a series of circumstances that neither of you can control, but that both of you are aware of because we all are familiar with our own eventual meeting of an end. And so they filibuster. They're doing a life filibuster. They are going to keep procrastinating and putting off several things, even in the face of someone who is willing to, make try to make some change or at least attempt it. Let me see. That's all they want. Yeah. It feels like people nowadays, like their entire method of operation is to go and watch some music video on YouTube that they can shake their head to. Um, Pop out some children after laying in bed with a guy or woman because of how they looked as opposed to how they acted or what they'd had. And everyone else that doesn't want to partake in such, you know, um, emotional and illogical actions is subject to being criticized and ignored. In the worst case, criticized, the best case, ignored. BBS says before you know it, you're almost 30 or maybe 40, and it's not even worth it anymore because now they want someone for security. Yeah, and then you say to yourself, well, you wouldn't pay attention to me before you were past your high water mark, so why should I, engage with you now? Shutting from the sky says death is coming, make money, fly to Thailand. Yeah. Um, at least someone else gets it. Maybe not in that same way, but you at least comprehend what the meaning of what I'm saying. It's just sad. And like I said, the reason for a majority of these children being born out of wedlock, and my bringing it up is, I've already explained my motive for mentioning this over and over is that people will jump in bed with whoever they are physically attracted to, um, and barely know, without any kind of actual commitment. Whether it's in the form of documents, aka marriage, or anything else, so that when the guy leaves, they can blame the guy, uh, and try to make him out to be the villain as to why this child is having a more difficult time in life. Okay, Manny says, you know what you want and they don't. That just says to me, y'all, and those are not. I am again. If they had no idea what they wanted, why are they still having these children out of wedlock? Now, if you go and tell them that was an accident or something that they didn't intend to do, they'll get upset with you. But if you go use context clues, you figure out that it's almost as if you want to create some kind of basic union with a lot of these women nowadays, you have to almost be a deceptive trickster. You can't outright say, I want to, try to create something with you. It has to be, oh, I like how your face looks. You like how I'm shaped. Let's hop in bed and, get it on. And then, oh, this thing pops out 9 months later, yada, yada, yada. It can never just be straight. Again, the bag of tricks can only go so far because eventually they'll realize, wait a second, this person deceived me. And now by then it'll be too late. But still, I don't like having to do that. And people have recommended that multiple times now. Yeah, but what gets me about people who will mention what Manny just said about these aren't the right fit or the right ones or yada yada yada, is that you'll have people who will say, your standards are too high. You're looking for, for the wrong type of people, yada yada yada. But if you make compromise after compromise after compromise, what else can you do? I consider and I can accept that a majority of them are not thinking seriously about 10 years from now. I can, go whatever, but if you're not going to at least hear me out or just shun it because, oh, it sounds tough, when you would engage in the same activities were it not stated before it started, aka, accidentally fumbling into something because you didn't have protection, I don't have any sympathy for you. I can't because you just admitted I would rather go into it or rather by what you will do afterward, without having any, plan put forth by a person who stated they want to be involved and was willing to commit, versus someone that just, pumped and dumped you and left you, with this child. Okay, so VBS, it's only like this in other countries, like you said earlier. I would take their model any day. Yeah. Other regions of the world tend to be better than the U.S. on many cultural issues, but that's a story for another day. Right now, my arm is getting a little tired, so I want to thank those who participated in the stream. What's hard? I want to know what's hard, Manny, before I go. But I'd like to thank those that participated, and it's sad that those of us who are able to look at long-term consequences almost have this, you know, moniker put forth toward them about, oh, you're this, you're that, when we're fully accepting of the fact that we won't be here in 90 or 80 years most likely, and we're trying to make good of what time we have. And a lot of us don't just want to get wet, or else we'd go and get with some escort. So in having legitimate wanting of just being able to go out and enjoy the company of those that are our contemporaries, it's very aggravating to have them sit there and play uh, Iranian hostage crisis requirements in terms of who they'll date and who they won't give an attempt to. And if you complain about this, you're called entitled and all these other terms. When really you're just trying to make good with what time you have. So, I expect to continue to see the stupidity of those around me when it comes to their partners, and the continued suffering of children in these communities, be they in minority communities or other ones. And I will press forward with the various projects and other works that we have for this channel and across the World Wide Web. So thank you for participating. VVS says there's no way of winning. I expect it to stay the same too. Sadly, well, listen, it sucks. It's retarded. The people behind it are operating as if they're brain dead, and it's even more disturbing when you think those are going to be people's parents. But you and I can at least try to make good with the company of having ourselves and like-minded individuals acknowledging faults, problems, and issues with how things currently are. So, again, I'd like to thank you for participating, and I will have something else out either today and or definitely tomorrow. Thank you.